Okay, we'll call the Rules Committee meeting to order. This is our April meeting. Councilor Critton, would you address the meeting?
Father, thank you for letting us all feel good enough to be here, and at my household, everybody's feeling good. Thank you, and thank you for this day. Be with us as we do what we do here. Thank you for all things, and most of all, Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Shelley, you want to do the roll call?
Joe Bird.
Honey?
Brian Warner.
Honey.
Franklin.
Honey.
Steve Austin.
Here.
Harley Buzzer.
Here.
Sean Crittenden.
Here.
Mike Dobbins.
Here.
Shannon Duncan.
Honey.
Wanda Hatfield. Rex Jordan.
Here.
Dick Clay.
Here.
Mike Shambaugh.
Here.
Mary Bakershaw. Deanna Smith.
Here.
Denise Taylor. Here. Victoria Vasquez. Lonnie. David Watson.
Honey.
We have a quorum.
Okay, at this time I entertain approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Yes, Marshall Buell.
Good afternoon. Other than the monthly report, a couple things came up at the council meeting last month, or I guess the first of this month, and I didn't have the figures with me at hand, so I do now. Right now we have 31 marshals on active status with us, not to include me. And of the 31 or 32 of us, 12 of those did not receive a pay increase because they already met or were above the BIA level. So I wasn't sure on the numbers. I wanted to get back to you with the specific numbers. Also, I want to be quite candid. Any investigations that the Marshal Service does, especially toward any elected official, we do not publicize it. We will immediately go to that elected official, discuss it with them, and we do not make that public record. That's something that we take very seriously. We might have to go speak to an elected or appointed official, whatever, and we want to make sure that their image isn't tarnished unless it has to be. How's that? You know, we get a lot of allegations brought to our office over the years, and we have to look at those allegations. Some might end up being founded, but for the most part, a lot of them are not founded. So we don't want to get in the business of ruining people's reputations, whether you're an elected official or a citizen of the tribe. We don't want to do that either. We do a lot of investigations on tribal citizens that come out to be nothing. And the worst thing you could have happen to you is be accused of something in the public and not be doing that. So our findings, once we get whatever the finding is, we turn that over to the appropriate DA's office or the Tribal Attorney General's office or the U.S. Attorney's office. And they're the ones that decide whether charges are filed or not. We don't get to decide whether charges are filed. We just present an investigative case, hopefully get all the facts straight, and to the DA or to the Attorney General or to the U.S. Attorney. And then they look at the case on its face and decide if charges are filed. So that's kind of how that works. The Marshal Service, we don't charge. We don't file charges. That's not in our wheelhouse. We're in the investigative arm of the legal system. So just want to make that very clear, especially I do this every 4 years at political season because you always get weird stuff happening. If I get something on any official, I'll immediately call that official and say, I have this allegation, let's sit down and talk about it. Okay? Something that I take a great pride in to make sure that we keep on the up and up and everything fair. So, is there any questions?
Any questions for our marshal? Yes, Councilor Buzzer?
I've noticed on your report, Shannon, that you had 31 casino requests.
Mm-hmm.
What type of requests are we talking about there?
Those are everything going from, I'm just an example, Hard Rock and Catoosa. Catoosa PD asked for a video surveillance request. It comes through our office. We find the piece of surveillance that they need. We get that approved through C&E, get it to them, then present it to there. everywhere from that, picking up evidence, picking up contraband. There's a lot of drugs that are dropped or left in rooms, or they find it on the sidewalk. Each casino has a bin where they put this contraband in, and then they call us when there's enough in there, and we send the marshal out, we pick it up, and then we destroy it. So it could be any of those things.
Okay, in your budget, did we get money from CNE?
Yes, we did. Yes.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, Counselor Shaw, Mayor Baker Shaw.
Hi, Shannon.
Hello.
Shannon, I just want to be sure I understand something correctly. The marshal service is not under the security service, for example, at Hastings?
No.
No, that's a different area. But you are under the security is under you at our casinos, is that correct?
No, at the casinos, we only administer the armed license. If a security officer's at the casino and they have a gun on, then we're kind of like CLEAT is for the state of Oklahoma security officers. CNE will file the paperwork to us. We look at their background and either approve or disapprove them being able to carry a firearm. We have nothing to do with their employment. All we do is establish whether or not they can carry a firearm or not carry a firearm. And then if something happens while on duty, if it is a security officer that holds a firearm, then we review that case to see if they get to keep their firearm or we take the firearm away. So we're only a regulatory body for CNE, just for the officers that carry firearms.
Thank you for that clarification, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, at Hard Rock, we have, Mickey Spears' title is what, Shannon?
Yes.
Security?
Security. He's their head of security.
Okay. Is the difference, is there security and there's surveillance? Is that all in one, or is that separate?
They're separate. I think I don't know if they report to Mickey or not. That's not in my bailiwick to know, but I know that security is separate from surveillance, and it always has been. That way, surveillance sometimes has to watch security do stuff, and it's not good to have people watching people under the same house. So,
Who's assigned to, example, Hastings Hospital?
Yes.
What do we have there? Is that security, or is
it's
that?
security. The hospital, Cherokee Nation Health, pays them and supervises those people. We don't.
Really? Okay. Wow.
The only security that I actually supervise is security that's here on campus.
Okay. Anybody else? I will say, yes, Counselor Dobbins?
Just want to pass the word, Shannon. The Three Rivers Health Facility is greatly pleased about the cross-deputy agreement with Muskogee PD, because they were 30 minutes away from help.
Yes, I agree. Good.
Really happy about that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Had an opportunity to attend the Federal Bar conference in Albuquerque last week, and the U.S. Attorney from the Northern District couldn't have said any more of the model law enforcement that we had with our marshals, and gave credit to you, Shannon, mentioned you by name.
Well, thank you.
It just made me proud, because there's all tribes from that's in gaming that were in attendance. And he used the Cherokee Nation as a model for other tribes to look at with our cross-jeopardization and our relationships with the counties and even the state troopers, that we may have been the only tribe to have that agreement, some type of agreement. It made you proud to be a Cherokee.
It's my honor to serve the tribe and to serve the council. I've done this going on, it'll be 19 years in August 13th of 2000 when I swore in. And it's been the best job I've ever had. So I'm proud to be here.
Yes. Well, thank you, Marshall. Appreciate you. Chrissy Nemo, Attorney General's Office.
Good afternoon. I have a couple of updates. I think there was a meeting, the last group of committee meetings that I wasn't at, that you all asked about the Arkansas ICWA case. I think Counselor Shambaugh. I sent the pleadings around. We are still early stages in that case. The plaintiffs did ask for a temporary restraining order, and we filed our response to that, and that was denied 2 days ago, I think, which is a win for us. Our first responsive pleading on that is not due until May 6th. So once we get that filed, I will make sure everyone gets a copy of it. But it's kind of, like I said, early stages and slow going. And just a comment generally on ICWA, because I've got an unusual amount of calls in the last couple of weeks. The situation is usually a parent who is Cherokee, who is going through a divorce or a custody battle with the other parent of the child. And ICWA does not apply to those cases. We cannot we can't intervene in the case, we can't represent the parents. So if it's a divorce action or a paternity custody, if it's between two parents fighting over custody of a kid, ICWA doesn't apply and the tribe cannot be involved. And we always get a couple
Both
of
are tribal
those.
members? Is that how?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if both of them or one of them. ICWA only applies when a child is being placed away from one of the parents or parental rights are being terminated. If it's just parents fighting over the custody of the child, ICWA doesn't apply, the tribe can't get involved, and then we don't provide individual representation to any citizens. But I'd guess I had 10 probably in the last 2 weeks, and they call and say, I'm going through a divorce, and I'm Cherokee, and I want you guys to help me, and we can't help them. And they're always very understanding once I explain it to them. I didn't know if something was out there that someone saw or had been told, because it just seemed like there was an uptick in the calls, and I know that a lot of you know that, but I just wanted to say it again. So if you have a constituent call and say they're getting a divorce and they want us to help them, you'll know to tell them that we can't help them.
Chrissy, can we, I get those calls too, probably not as many as you do, but what do we let them know? What are their options other than, if we can't, what do we let them know about other resources?
And I think we've done this before, and if I can follow up on it and get it back to you guys. First of all, if I refer them to attorneys in their area that I know, if I know someone in that area, a lot of times they're calling because they can't afford an attorney, so I will either refer them to legal aid in their community, or
Okay.
if one parent is Indian and the other is not, there's a chance that Oklahoma Indian Legal Services will represent them, but they also don't often get involved in divorce and custody matters that fall outside of ICWA. So unfortunately, a lot of times the answer is there's not a lot that we can do for you. I do always encourage them to call local attorneys, whether it's from their phone book or Facebook or whatever in their area. A lot of times family law attorneys are a lot more affordable than people think they are. I mean, there's lots of people that get divorced and go through custody issues, and a lot of attorneys will tell them up front what their fee is or what their retainer is, so I often encourage them to do that. And you're not, in an ICWA case where ICWA applies, you're entitled to court-appointed counsel, and if the state is taking your kids away, you're entitled to court-appointed counsel, but you don't get court-appointed counsel in a divorce case if you can't afford it. You just don't have an attorney.
Okay.
So we try to refer them to places that might be able to help them, and like I said, if it's a community that I'm familiar with, I will give them names of attorneys that I know that do those cases there, but just because those are people that I know. But there's just not a lot that we can help them with on that.
Okay. Question, Counselor Shamrock?
I think you just asked it. You did, and she answered it about the indigent needing an attorney.
Yeah.
And without saying a name, did you happen to get a call from Delaware County in the last week or so? Do you remember?
I've got several. No one specifically told me they were from Delaware County.
Well, you probably did because they called me. But you answered the indigent question.
And a lot of times, sometimes I will ask them where they're from just to see if I know anyone there. But a lot of times, they immediately start, I'm getting a divorce, and I'm Cherokee, and my husband's not. And, I kind of have a standard spiel that I tell them that, we can't do anything for you, but here are some options that you can look into.
Todd, would you please take this information she just shared and get with Gail so the rest of the council would know who to refer them to if we can't handle it ourselves? Appreciate it. Counselor Critton?
Chrissy, the Attorney General's office sometimes use lawyers that's not necessarily employed by the nation, right?
Often.
Okay. Now, what's the different scenarios, what we call them? Do we call them an employee, a contracted employee? What's all your options to call them?
We just contract with them. They're not employees. They're
Contract with?
They're not even contract employees, because a lot of times the contract will actually be with the law firm, and then whatever attorney works for them will be, assigned to our case. But we just enter into a contract with the law firm to provide legal services outside legal counsel.
So if they're representing Cherokee Nation, they're considered what?
They're a vendor. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it would be the same as any other kind of service provider, I guess, that the nation contracts with.
But they would be being paid by the nation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Yes, Counselor Buzzer?
I want to make sure I heard you right, Chrissy. You say in a divorce case that they can't not get a free attorney? Is that what you-
Right. So you're, in criminal law, you're constitutionally entitled to counsel if you can't afford it. And then under ICWA, if ICWA applies, the court must provide an attorney to the parents if they can't afford it. And then in the state of Oklahoma, if your children are taken into custody by DHS under Oklahoma law, parents are entitled to counsel if they can't afford it. But there's no either constitutional issue or statute in regular civil cases that allows someone to have a court-appointed attorney if they can't afford one. So whether that's a divorce or you get sued on a breach of contract or whatever, if you can't afford an attorney, you just don't get one.
And the other question I want to follow up with, I don't remember how long this was it a year ago or 2 years ago, but we had hired a law firm to investigate or to look at with the Cherokee Nation some of the old treaties. I'm talking about timber treaties. Trust cases. Where are we? Have we got an update on them, where they are? Or?
It is ongoing. We filed the petition. The United States filed a motion to dismiss, and we are awaiting a decision from the court on that. And go ahead.
I believe was it Chickasaws and Choctaws were successful in doing just what we're trying to do now.
And just a little background reminder on that, and
Sure.
they were so. And there have been several of these, they're trust accounting cases, and there have been several tribes across the country that have filed them. And the ones who got settlement, the first step is to ask the United States government to provide an accounting of all the tribal money and resources that they have been in control of for 200 years. And the tribes that were able to get settlements, it was because the United States basically came back and said, we can't provide an accounting because we're looking at 100 plus years and there's lost documents. We know that there was some money there, but we don't really know what happened to it. And then those groups would kind of negotiate based on what each side thought may or may not have been there. But we're still in the step of asking them for an accounting, and they filed a motion to dismiss. And so we'll get a ruling on that. And depending on the ruling on that, we'll determine next steps.
When did we do this? Was it 2
I think
years
we're
or 3 years?
I think we're 3 years into it. I'll send the updated
And I
information.
just wanted to bring it up for some of the council members that may not have been involved with that, to let them know that there is a case out there. or
Yeah, and
there's
that
a law
was
firm out
that was
there.
outside counsel
Yeah,
prior
they're
to do
outside
that.
counsel
Yeah.
now. And hopefully we're successful on some of this stuff, because if you look at some of the old deeds, and I have deeds from my grandma and grandpa, timber allotment, timber soil, timber this and timber that, and you didn't get anything for it. So this is one of the things.
And
that-
those are a lot of the claims in
Yeah,
there.
there's a lot of timber claims in the thing.
And unfortunately, I know you've asked this question before, courts don't have time periods in which they have to render decisions.
Is that right?
It'll come when the judge gets to it.
Okay, okay. Thanks, sir.
Anybody else? Good report, Chris.
I had one more, just a question that came up earlier. We did, as of yesterday, we advertised the position for Health General Counsel. You all know that Elizabeth Odell left, and I've been covering health stuff, but we've got that position open, and it's posted on our website. It'll be in the Tulsa World and the Oklahoma Bar Journal, so if anybody knows the attorney with some health experience looking for a job, send them our way, preferably Cherokee. Thank you.
All right, Kana. Okay, Gwen Terrapin.
Good afternoon.
Take away.
So far for 2019, we've got a total of 24 requests. 19 of those are GRAs and 5 of those are FOIAs. We've got 3 outstanding on the FOIA side and 1 outstanding on the GRA side. And our website's been updated, and you all should have received a copy of the report.
Any questions for Gwen? If not, good report.
Thank you.
Election Commission, I think they're busy counting something.
Busy.
Some type of request, I think, is a deadline today, so that's probably why they're not here. Okay, Tax Commission, Sharon Swepston.
Afternoon.
believe you have my report, and I'll try to entertain any questions that you might have.
Yes, any questions for our tax commission?
I do.
Yes, Counselor Buzzard?
I don't know, Sharon, you know, we don't do a lot of veterans recognition through our council meeting. Do you track those veterans at all, or do you just leave it up to them to know that they can get a tax exempt card?
We don't track them. I mean, as far as the applications and stuff that's out on the website and all of that, but we don't send out any information or anything like that.
I think I saw a report one time, we had there was 1,000 some veterans,
Right.
but we only have 379, and we need to, I don't know, someone needs to get that out. I don't know if
Right,
it's
and I
Carlton
work
or
with
Barbara Cotton.
Barbara
Yeah.
at the Veterans Center, so she's aware of that, and she tries to get
Okay.
applications out. So we do work with them
So she-
also, trying to get that out there.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Anybody else? What kind of a discount do we give our veterans for car tags?
It's, for what?
For car tags?
For the car tax, there's several different ones. It depends on whether they're an active military or not. And then it also is different for at-large, because we have to go by the state on what those fees are. But I believe, it's like a $10, $15 discount on the
Okay.
tags, but there's several different ones. I'd have to
Yeah.
go back and look at them, but I can
Okay.
get you a list if
Okay.
you'd like that.
All right. Anybody else?
This don't pertain to good, Sharon, I'll let her go ahead and move on, then I'll ask.
Okay. Are you through? Okay, go ahead.
On the election commission not being here, how does the process work? Just me, I was kind of expecting kind of an update on how things were going and things. Is there a way to holler at them and tell them we'd like a kind of an update on what's going on? And
Did they give a report of any kind? A written
There was
report?
there was a report that they're only physically here every 3 months.
Okay. I guess we can send for them if we need specific questions.
yeah, I wouldn't care to get kind of an update on how things are going,
Okay.
if they're supposed to be here.
Okay. All right, thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
Self-governance?
So Karen has been out with family illnesses for several weeks. She's not here today to provide the report. I did visit with her earlier this week. She is planning on getting back into the office next week, and so we should have a full report too on self-governance. But that's, I apologize that we didn't have a report for that. But that's
Anything major going on? We're good?
not at the moment. Everything's moving along. We're continuing to look at several different grant applications and funding, but it's normal operations, nothing is really out of control.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Okay, Gaming Commission, Jamie Hummingbird.
So, I'm Jamie today. Y'all stole all my thunder by going to the property, so I don't have anything to report on the new property. Jamie right now is with the NIGC representative out of the Tulsa Regional Office, and she's been there since 9:30 this morning. And it's quite an extensive review of all the processing that's going on, and that will conclude with a walk through the property. So if you have any questions, I can take questions back to Jamie for you.
Okay. Any questions for Deborah here? So they're testing the machines now for
Yes.
opening, is that what?
This property was a little different. Most of the time, we have all the machines come in, they do the install and all the testing at once. However, we have the old casino, so those machines are being brought over a little at a time, and so the testing's kind of been extensive. The install's been extensive. But they'll be ready, and opening, we're planning on opening around 10 o'clock Tuesday, 10 a.m.
Okay.
So
Anybody else?
Tuesday morning?
they do all the testing on the machines, their computers, so everything that has been installed, all the gameware that's installed, every bit of that gets tested to make sure that everything is running correctly and all the reports and comps are correct.
We're shooting for Tuesday, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that good? Anybody else? Good report.
And I would like to add that I do the safety part of it, and I would just like to commend everybody that worked on a project. They've all worked together, and it's been hard, but everybody came together as a team, and it's a wonderful product over there. I love the way it's laid out and the way it looks. So I think it's like our best casino yet. Thank you.
Human Resources, Nathan Morton.
Speaker, before you get,
Yes, Council Crittenden.
if I'm the only one that would want that, there's no need to go to all that trouble. I can get with them.
Would you please write those down, though, questions, so we can get them answered? And we can probably get those answered by, if you're not satisfied, we can bring them in the
Well,
ENF.
they've been pretty good about answering any questions that the folks that I know, so I'm sure not opposed to them reporting today if anybody else was wanting them to be here. But if I was the only one there,
No, I'd like to have them report.
okay, well, I'll stay on board with
Okay,
having them report then.
all right. Yes, Mary, did you
No,
have?
I'd like a report too. I've got several questions I need answered.
Okay. I don't have any. I'm good. I'm glad I'm not on any.
Do you want us to write the questions down, or are you going to
It
try to see
would,
what
it
come
would,
down?
it would help. And then we'll make a call over there. I think that's what Todd's doing. Okay?
Speaker,
Yes.
just with all due respect, I mean, it's up to you totally, being the speaker, but I wouldn't see any special need for us to, I mean, we didn't write down special things for Nason or anyone. So I would just say if they're gonna come and report, just like everybody else is reporting, take our questions
That'll be fine.
and answer if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Back to our agenda. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. In the packet this month, along with the regular report, I did a average of 2014 through 2017, and they're broken down. Excuse me, let me find it real fast. I did one that looks like this with the actual numbers on each one. But I was able to make an actual chart to kind of show each time, because sometimes I need a visual. So I did basically how the days are broken down in each one. And if you'll notice on this chart, when you're looking through it, the analyst time went down, cut pretty much in half. What I did a couple of years ago is we started listing the posting time, the advertisement time separately, where before that time I had included it with the analyst. And so they came to me and said, hey, we can't really work on these. I know these are my days, but we can't do anything with them for posting. So we modified the report a little bit to show actual posting time. And so that's the average breakdown on those.
Okay.
And also, I had a previous report that goes kind of in detail of what goes into each person and what they do. Basically, this is a report from a couple years ago. I pulled it off of Legistar. That's why, if you'll notice, when it starts on time to fill, it starts with page 22. Those aren't my numbers. That was the packet you guys got at that time. I just pulled my portion off. It would have been every department's reports. So that's why it starts at page 22. Are there any questions on the time to fill or?
Any questions for Mason here? Yes, Councilor Shaw.
Nathan, you clearly state on here that this report does not include physicians, health services professionals that are on contract. I have a question. Are all our physicians on contracts?
I believe so.
Are these the contracts where they can be terminated the next day that we've had in the past? I'm just curious. Has that changed? Has that evolved into something?
They are, the only way that they can be terminated immediately is mutual agreement. So if the physician and the nation agree to end the contract. Otherwise, it's for cause. So they are in order to end their contract, they're subject to the same reasons that we could fire someone for. And I can't remember now if they're 1 year or 2 year. They've gone back and forth, but no, they can only be terminated for cause unless
Okay.
both parties agree.
Well, approximately when I came on board in August, I guess, of 2017, they could be terminated just by being informed that they weren't being renewed or whatever that was called.
No, that's true. They can fail to renew them at the end of the term of the contract, which is either 1 or 2 years. But in the middle of a contract, they can't end it unless they do something that would lead to termination.
So that has not changed.
Any person, and that's that is from a Supreme Court employment case. Any person who is on a contract employment, the language from the Supreme Court was they don't have any continued expectation of employment beyond the end date of their contract. So any person who works for the Cherokee Nation who's on a contract, at the final day of their contract, the department could say, we are not renewing this contract. Or before that even, technically they have to tell them before
That had a tendency to happen in the
that.
past. I was just curious if it had changed. It has not changed.
It has not changed.
Okay. Next question. There is a human resource department at Hastings, is that correct? Is there an HR at Hastings or not?
I don't believe so.
No, so you are accountable for Hastings as well.
We perform the services for Hastings.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. Okay, do we do background checks on their employees?
On Hastings employees? Yes.
Okay, does that include things like DUIs or public intoxication on these employees that we're hiring?
It would include any records they would have with a tribal, state, or, yes.
We do. Okay, what about people who are getting promotions? I mean, suppose we have an employee who's worked for us for a couple of years, and now we've got somebody over here who wants to promote them. Do we go back before they receive this promotion, maybe even get a car or something? Do we go back and check these for DUIs and for public intoxication? I mean,
I believe we check them periodically, but I will follow up with you on the actual process.
if we find they have, what happens?
And we also have a policy on that. I'll get you that one too.
I mean, do we go back and we demote people, or do we, I mean, how does this work?
If you have a job that requires driving and you're no longer able to drive, it may result in you being unable to meet your job duties.
Okay, and my next question is, if it doesn't require driving, and we've got someone with a couple of DUIs and public intoxication, is this who we want in a supervisory position? I mean, at what point do you step in and perhaps override somebody who's given a promotion? Do we have criteria in place where you sit down and say, hey, this is not the best person to promote for the following reasons?
Does that fall on you more as the executive director or the chief of staff, or doesn't the health department fall under the chief of staff?
Yes, they would fall under the chief of staff.
Because I knew Dr. Grimm answered to our chief of staff. There's a reason I say that. So you have all those levels, so you from HR probably have some input. You've got the data, but the executive director still makes the call, and this is brought to your attention, correct?
There is a process in place where, depending on what it is, they may not be suitable for the position. But there is a great deal that goes into the process, and I'll send you that one as well. It's in, I believe it's 2D or 2D1, and so it's a nice guideline on how that works.
I would appreciate that.
But I'll get you the entire set.
As soon as possible. I guess my concern is, what do you do when somebody's been given the job and then they haven't realized that?
Afterwards, you find
Yeah,
out there's
yes.
discrepancy there, and they don't meet the criteria. They might have met the criteria when they got hired, but then they get some violations on their record. Driving is probably one instance.
And I'm going to make sure that what we do again if you move to a new position, because it would be a separate hire. So I'm going to find out what we actually do and give you the process. There are some that would trigger for certain jobs, like a youth-sensitive job, where every either 3 years or 5 years, sometimes maybe earlier, they will update you. We check again to see if anything has changed. and that doesn't require you to move from any job. And I know they also check on driver's licenses, because a couple years ago when mine was getting ready to expire, I got a notice that my driver's license was getting ready to expire, to let me know, hey, if you drive a car. So I'll see if we still do that too.
Good? But, yeah, Counselor Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't know who this goes to, but the doctor's employment contract, what type of a contract is it? I know we went through about 4 different types of contracts, a month or two ago, and so is it an employment contract?
We actually call them, they are employees who are on employment agreements. And that contract lays out their pay, their hours. It specifically, for like physicians, any certifications or whatever they have to have. It also specifically says that they are subject to all Cherokee Nation HR policies and procedures, unless it's different. Like some of them get more time off than the average person gets, or their pay scale, they can get paid more if they also are on call or something like that. But that is all laid out in the contract. The 90% of the contract is the same for all of them, but then for each one, there's some individual difference there based on their pay and sometimes tuition reimbursement and some of those things. And I just can't remember. At one time they were 1 year and one time they were 2 years, and I will check and let you know. I just can't remember what they are now. I don't know if we went back to 1 year or if they're still on 2 year.
Okay, so do they hold all the rights that all of our employees hold during that contract period?
So their contract can only be ended for cause, the same way as all of our other employees. But if let's say their contract is wrongfully terminated and they sue, they are only entitled to, they don't get their job back. They would only be entitled to the payout under their contract because they're on a contract. Whereas a regular full-time employee, if they get fired and they sue and the court finds that they were wrongfully terminated, they get back pay and they get their job back. But any employee who is on an employment agreement, and again, this goes back to a Supreme Court case that says if they're on an employment agreement, they don't have a continued expectation of employment beyond the end of that. So we don't say you have to bring them back and permanently employ them, but they do have a breach of contract claim. And if the court were to find that the contract was wrongfully terminated, then we would have to pay them the remainder salary and benefits under their contract. And we have never had an appeal on a contract termination, at least for a health employee. I think we had one for a Sequoia employee several years ago, but they do have the same protections as far as the due process, and they're covered by all the same policies and procedures as a regular employee.
And so maternity days off and these kinds of things, that's kind of what I was asking.
Unless it is laid out differently in their contract, they get what every regular employee has. Sometimes they get more because they're physicians and we're trying to recruit them to come work for us. Sometimes they get more days off and that type of thing. They get most of them get some extra days off to go do their yearly education updates. But so what it says is the HR policy and procedure of Cherokee Nation applies unless there's something different in the contract. So yes, unless it wasn't in there, they would be covered by maternity leave. I don't know if the maternity leave policy says it covers contract employees, but the contract says you're covered under Cherokee Nation policies and procedures.
And I wonder, do other tribes do kind of the same thing that y'all are doing with those contracts?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Critton.
Chrissy, compare those employee contractors to what we talked about earlier, the law. When you contract a law, compare. So this law, some of these cases, as we know, last years, right?
We could end their contract
So,
tomorrow.
but do they fall under?
No,
So
they are not considered employees in any way.
They
And
don't fall under any kind of Cherokee Nation rules.
Well, I mean, when we contract for outside counsel, they report to the AG. The AG, except for tribal council attorney and chief attorney, the AG has to approve any legal services contract that the nation enters. And so they don't independently represent us. We are their client through the attorney general. So they take direction on what to file, what arguments to make from the attorney general, but they are not
They
employees.
do fall under the Attorney General,
Yes,
which
yes.
is Cherokee Nation.
Yes, they can't just go out. Yeah.
What is it?
An independent contractor. The same way as if we go sign a contract with someone to come do some concrete work. They have to do what we tell them, but
Yes.
they're not our employees, they're not covered by workers' compensation, or they don't get any additional benefits. They bill us for, we charge this much an hour and we pay their bill, but they also are under our directive. Like, an attorney can't appeal a case without their client, which is the Cherokee Nation, agreeing to that. So they take directive from us, they're just the ones.
Now, if they mess up in a bad way, you know, let's say this has taken years, who steps in and lines them out?
It would
Attorney
be,
General.
it would be the AG. And I mean, if we weren't happy with someone's legal representation, we would likely end a contract with them. And if they did something that was malpractice, we could likely sue them. But we've never had any issues like that.
So they're representing the Cherokee people.
Yes.
Cherokee Nation.
Yes.
And they, is there policies that they fall under? Is it all just written in the contract?
The contract is the only thing. We specifically, and some of them have things like they can't, waive sovereign immunity without consent of the tribe. They can't, I know with our workers' comp attorneys and some of our insurance, if we have an insurance claim, someone gets injured at work or something like that, there's outside counsel that handle those cases. And in those, we specifically say they can't raise or waive sovereign immunity defenses without permission from the nation.
So it's just not as simple as if you're paying me to do something, you're my employer.
Correct.
Thank you.
Counselor Shambaugh?
Just a quick one, Chrissy. Now, would they fall under, would an attorney fall under like the Cherokee Bar Association as far as their ethics and things like that? Do they, like a regular lawyer, would follow under the Bar Association? Wouldn't they govern a lot of what they do with clients as opposed
So you're talking about
to-
the ones we contract with?
Yes, wouldn't they more fall under those kind of rules as opposed to what we put on them, or what?
No, the Cherokee Bar Association would only have authority over them if they were members of the Cherokee Bar Association, which usually means they're practicing in tribal court. Like if we're contracted with an attorney, let's say a firm in Tulsa, if they did something that we believe violated the code of ethics for attorneys, we would report them to the Oklahoma Bar Association, and they would
So
be subject.
they would fall under the Oklahoma Bar
Right,
Association?
right.
So you're talking about if the representation didn't rise to the level it needed to in a case, and they weren't given fair legal representation, they would have to answer more so to the bar than
Right.
us.
Our main remedy against them would be if we're not happy with their legal representation, we would just end the contract with them and no longer associate with them.
Okay, thank you.
Cut them off, huh?
It's gonna come up, because in the next meeting, we're asking y'all for some money.
Anybody else?
Good segue.
Okay, you know what I would recommend then is make a motion to recess until we hear back from Election Commission, if that's okay with the council and committee. Is that okay? Okay, need a motion to recess?
recess.
Okay. A motion, a second to recess until we hear from the Election Commission. We do have a meeting at 3, but we've got a little time here, so a motion to recess.
Make a motion, we reconvene the
Motion, a
rules
second,
meeting.
all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, where were we before we were interrupted here? Okay. Election Commission. I know you guys are busy, getting everything lined up. We appreciate, I think we just have a few questions, and we'll get you back there ASAP.
Sure,
Okay, Councilor Critton, you want to start?
Yeah, and I want to start off by saying thank you. You've been really accessible, helpful on them dadgum finance things. Good Lord. That's bad when you got little money as I do and it's that hard. But y'all been good about answering questions.
Thank you.
Just
Appreciate that.
any update, what's going on. That's why I was interested in you guys being here.
Okay.
Any information you can give us on anything, interesting things, or how I've got constituents that are also running, so if they ask me maybe when the lists are coming out or something, just stuff like that, the updated list. And
Now, the voter lists are ready. The final voter list is ready, and I think we closed out with a little over 73,000 voters. I think whenever I first started, we were around 70. And so this last push, these last few months has really been getting the voters registered, getting the citizens registered. So we're sitting at about 73,000. Voters. And as far as the absentee requests, we're still processing those. We got a large amount in on the deadline. This is something that we, from what I've heard in the past, we haven't ever seen as far as the amount that we've received via fax, via email. You could have someone answering faxes all day. You could have someone answering emails all day and just printing, and then responding. So we got quite a few there, and then we got quite a few dropped that last day. So we're still processing those currently.
so that list is not updated.
It is
yet.
not complete yet. It is not complete.
One other question. Anybody else got one that slipped my mind here?
Mayor Baker Shaw had one.
Yes, I have been inundated, actually, with questions from the at-large. How many names are going to be on the ballot for the at-large citizens?
There's 5. Yeah, there's 5.
How many are actually eligible to run out of those 5? Then why are there 5 names on that ballot?
There are 5 names on the ballot because when you start the election setup, it's a lengthy process, and in order to meet all the timelines, that process has already begun. Once you close out that election setup in the system, in order to print those ballots, you're not allowed to go back in and open that election process until you do a new election. So that has already been done. The ballots have already been printed, and the plan is to get the ballots in the mail on the deadline of April the 30th and May the 1st. The
Yeah,
Crickets.
yeah. Yes.
How is that fair?
Well, I think that's an opinion question. I'm just telling you what the law tells us that we do. We have a timeline of April the 30th and May the 1st, and that's what we're trying to do. So I'm not here to answer the fairness of anything.
Now, it's something similar that, if someone were to pass away, then that person that was deceased is still on the ballot. But in our case, it's the timeline that the law says that we have to mail on that last day of April and that first day of May, and so we've got to get those out on those days. And
We brought in additional people that are helping us to meet these timelines, and so by this timeline, we have to get the rest of those absentee requests entered in, get the ballots into the envelopes and get them in the mail, and we still have quite a few absentee requests that we're entering in.
That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that there are 5 names you say on the ballot. There's only 4 eligible. My question is, if the 5th name is marked, that's not eligible, what happens to those votes?
They don't count.
They don't count. Well, who are they going to count for?
Nobody.
Then that's a wasted vote. Well, then that's not fair to the remaining 4 who are actually contenders for the off. I mean, I am concerned. I'm the other at large.
We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. That's one of the things that we are going to address, is how to get that information out to the voters, that there are 5 names on this ballot, but that one of those is ineligible. So we plan to discuss that tomorrow and make a decision on how to address that, so that when people get those ballots with 5 names, they will know that only 4 of those are going to count.
What's
So-
the last day for the appeal?
Today at 5.
Today at 5.
Well, we would be getting ahead of the game here if we tried to get paper printed without her name.
See, that's part,
We-
that's,
Well, we don't want to violate anybody's rights. There's a
Exactly.
process.
Exactly.
Election Commission made a decision, and you give this person her right, and that is her right,
exactly.
or his or her right, to appeal. You don't want to be jumping the gun, and that's just my thought here.
Well, by law, there are certain timeframes, certain days that have to take place before we can move to the next phase.
Yes.
And as we're moving to that next phase, the next part of the timeline is bumping up right to that. So, we are following the law, and it does push things in a crunch time frame. We would have preferred to had a decision before, our meeting in the morning as to what we're going to do or how to address that and getting that information out. But, if the appeal deadline is at 5 today, we can't make a decision on that until after that ends. And so we bumped it as close as we could and scheduled a meeting for 9 o'clock in the morning to address that. Because, once that's addressed, and whatever the decision is made, then we're looking at, in just a matter of hours, turning around and trying to get the ballots in the mail. So we are understanding your concern. It is a valid concern, and we are trying to address those according to the law. We do understand that.
Out of the 73,000 that you said you all have received, how many of those approximately are at large?
A little over 30,000.
A little over 30. So we're talking about 30,000 that you all would need to address, that the candidates, that not all of them are eligible to be elected. So there is a possibility you all could still do something about the 30,000,
Correct.
provided there's no appeal. Okay. And you do think there might be a plan that could possibly come into play for that?
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know. My phone has rang off the hook on this. I hope you
Okay.
know
Well,
that.
we are certainly aware of that, and we are trying to address it as close as we can to the
Yeah.
timeline.
Chrissy, before we had Counselor
I was just
Shambaugh.
going to add, and I know that you're aware of this case, Speaker, but if other folks may not be, this is not the first time in a Cherokee Nation election that we've had people on the ballot whose votes are not counted. The case has gone to the Supreme Court in the past, and what the Supreme Court said in that case is that there is not sufficient time to print new ballots, and it appears by all cases in this time that there's not, because they have to be in the mail on Tuesday, that the ballots go out with the ineligible candidate on there, and that those votes simply don't count. So this is an issue that has gone to the court before, and the court has ruled on it. What the Election Commission, I think, is planning on doing is talking tomorrow about how best to inform voters that if you vote for this person, and that's assuming there's no appeal filed today, or assuming that the decision is upheld, that if you vote for this person, your vote won't count. But it is, I just wanted you all to be aware that this is something that the Cherokee Nation has dealt with before, and that our courts have dealt with before.
Well, then I would assume that if it doesn't count for whoever they're voting for, it also doesn't count for the office of deputy chief or chief as well. Then is that correct?
No.
No, it would only be for that specific candidate that
So
is
that the
ineligible.
entire vote is not null and void. Well, then I certainly do hope you come up a way where somebody gets to, because
We've already addressed that with our companies that we deal with, and how we can address that.
well, next week, if you need someone to come help stuff those envelopes with instructions on the fact that somebody, I'll be happy to come and help. And I cannot help but think some of my other constituents here, I'm on this council, might also be willing to help stuff it.
I appreciate that, and we certainly do.
You can count me out of that.
Well, let me say, we already have extra workers that have worked with us in the past. We are making calls today to line up other workers and getting those people in place so that we have enough people to come and help us with those ballots. So we are
Well,
working
if it's
step by
just 30,000
step.
and we can add to make it fair, you know, I want it fair. I want to help, so.
These guys do about as good as they can to make it fair. Okay, we had another question, Counselor Shammo.
Well, I think Christie already answered it, because I know that this isn't the first time this has happened. I know in state elections, this happens quite often.
Right.
And it's dealt with there too, so I have every confidence that you guys will do what you need to do. It's not your first rodeo, and it is a difficult thing, but I know you'll do well.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yes, Counselor Walker.
Thank you, Speaker. So how many ballots are we talking about absentee for at-large?
They don't know yet.
We don't have a total yet because we're still entering those in.
Okay, if it's 8,000 or 10,000, could you go through and like white them out or something?
We would not be whiting anything out. We are going to discuss in the morning at our meeting how we can address getting that information out. The ballot is set, and it has the 5 candidates on there. But we are going to address how we can notify the people that if you vote for this person, it will not count. So we won't be whiting anything out. We won't be marking through anything on a ballot.
Yeah, we can't compromise the ballot.
Okay.
Just due to,
I understand that.
affecting any.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, well, so you guys, some of the things I've been hearing and other people have been is that, and it may be miscommunication or mix-up, but they said that there's ballots floating around right now, but they could be the perception is to request ballot that they're filling out. But people are saying they're filling out ballots.
Yeah, I think that's probably a misconception. I think that absentee ballot request has been used, or I guess absentee ballot has been used for absentee ballot request accidentally in a number of cases. So I think that you're right on that. I think that's a misconception that it's probably a request than an actual ballot.
Yeah.
Because I
There's
can't.
nothing,
Go ahead.
there's no ballots out.
There are
Yeah.
no ballots that have gone out of the office. We have only taken ballots to test the ballots with the machines, and that is all that has been done with the ballot. No ballots have been sent out of the office at all.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, it's out there.
So it's probably the request.
And then with this deal with with the counselor being removed, some people have conspiracies that, well, the election commissioners are not wanting to move it because there's ballots floating around out there.
No, and, if we had had more of a time frame, then, we could have looked at, okay, start it as a new election and go in, redo the whole election setup, reprint the ballots. Yes, there would be expense, but with this time frame, there is not time to do that. If there were, and we had a long time span, then that, is something that you could consider. But with the time frame as it is right now, that is not an option for us. So we have to look at what can we do to make it work, so that the voters are informed and we get the ballots out according to the timeline that we have.
Yeah. When I was up in Kansas City, I was visiting with a freedman descendant, and we were talking, and she was upset because she wasn't able to retrieve her blue card, and she was trying to get her citizenship, and she'd been put on the run around or whatever for the last couple of years trying to get her card because she wanted to vote. So I had her go talk to the registrar, get everything fixed up, but she made the comment to me. She said, "I don't really understand why they won't give me my blue card because I voted in the last 2 elections." And I really scratched my head on that, trying to figure out how that was possible for her to have voted in the last couple of elections. I got her name, but I can't remember it. And when I kind of gave her a confused look, she said, "Well, maybe I said too much." And so that was another concern of mine, is these absentee ballots and at-large and so forth. And I don't know. I wish I had her name. We could have investigated it and kind of figured it out.
Any concern like that is a concern of ours too. I mean, we would definitely ask that the citizen give us a call. We want to, if there's anything that's going on that they have questions about, just call us, because we want to look into it and see what's going on.
The best thing is we just upholding the integrity of our elections. That's the number one thing.
And Counselor, in that instance, if that lady were to have called us, we could have gone into the history of her voting and looked at when she voted and, what the history was there to see, whatever her concern was, to know, well, was there really a problem? Or, was there some miscommunication or whatever? So anytime the voter calls, if they have concerns, we can always go into their history and see what the situation was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The absentee list, the request list, if, I think you guys are gonna try to be done with those today or tomorrow, you think, or?
We'd love to be done tomorrow. I know we're gonna be here this weekend working, if not on finishing them, at least stuffing ballot.
Yeah.
Getting them ready. But, I would love to have them done by tomorrow night.
It's generally, those good to have those out early because so the candidates that are running, they can provide a piece of mail with the ballot when the ballot drops in the address. It's kind of a strategy in the game, but.
And we understand that, and we're, we're working till 10 o'clock at night. We'll be working all weekend, and so.
You're giving away your strategy, Walter. Everybody's aware of this.
There ain't nothing new under the sun, Speaker.
It's like there's no secrets in the Cherokee Nation. So these people they're going to get the information on whatever way you guys move forward. And usually we got 73,000 members. It's like the United States, the average that we'll have vote. It's not going to be 100%, of course.
Right.
So usually the national average is around 18, 19% at best in presidential elections. So unless we get the word out, then maybe we'll get more than what we usually get at the Cherokee Nation. Okay, anybody else? Councilor Buzzer.
Yes, I want to thank Marcus and your people there for responding to some of my questions and requests. But my question is, when we moved the election up by a month, if it was still the same way, would we have the same problem as we do now? Would you have that time frame to get things, print new ballots, I guess is what I'm asking.
You say moved up?
We moved the elections up a month because of the time frames, because of the runoff. My question is, if we'd left it the same, would you be in the same predicament that you're in now?
We would have still had pretty much the same time frames. I mean, there wasn't a lot of difference in that, so we
There
would
was a
have.
month, we moved it up a month.
Well,
A little bit.
I think we'd still be pretty close to the same situation because of the amount of time that it takes to go in and start the election setup, because that was started some time back, and we may have had a little bit more time, but I don't know that it would have allowed us the time.
So, in order to the next election, 2 years from now, is there a way to fix that, to fix the situation that we're in now? Can we move the appeal process up?
I don't know that it would actually fix it, because you're still going to have the amount of time, according to the law, that you have to allow for appeals and, for the different things that happen when there may be things that may deem a candidate ineligible.
I
So,
understand. Well,
There's definitely
Take
some
a
things
look at it
in the
and see,
law
'cause,
that
we will.
Yeah, I
need
would
to
We
be
can
looked
certainly
at.
take a look at that.
Yeah.
2 years from now, because it'll be here before you know it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and the time to look at that stuff is whenever it's fresh, right after,
Well, thank you all, I know you're doing a good job.
Yes, Councilor Shimba.
Just a analogy, I guess. I sit here and listen to conspiracy theories about ballots floating around and things like that, and guys haven't even released any ballots. Nothing's been sent out to anybody. I mean, there's talk like this all the time. I know that when in past elections I've gone to, I'm not saying this lady's being dishonest, but I've been to, I can't tell you how many houses I've gone to and say, hey, like your vote and all this stuff. Well, I'm a voter. Okay, what's your name? And they give me their name. And I got a person standing behind me with a voter's list, and this person has never voted in their life.
Exactly.
And they tell me that they have. And I know and they're not even registered.
Exactly.
I mean, it happens all the time. So, I hear these things, and I know that you guys haven't sent anything out. There's nothing floating around out there. There's no early ballots. Nobody's voting early.
Right.
I mean, this is just an election.
Right.
This is no different than any other election. And, if somebody has a question about their voting, write their name down and ask it. Now, I'm not saying, it's not hard to do, I mean, I've done it a million times, or I've got a voter's list, and I just check and see if they are on there. So,
Right.
you know, when somebody tells me something, I always check them out, and maybe she did, but the fact we don't have a name to check it with doesn't tell us anything. I mean, you've all been told that 100 times, and they don't. So I don't fall for all the rhetoric of things floating around and things like that. This is just another election. That's what it is, and it is what it is. I mean, when you guys send stuff out, everybody's going to know when they come out, and that's just the way it is. I'm sorry, am I wrong?
No, that's correct, and that was my point earlier, you know, unless we actually have the information from the voter to look at the history, you know, there may have been miscommunication, you know, in
But
that.
what I'm talking about is there are no ballots being sent out.
That's correct.
There's been nothing sent out, then,
That's exactly right.
okay.
Anybody else? Counselor Critton, we need to get
Well,
these guys
everybody
back.
knows they didn't send them out, Mike. But to say that, you know, to act like there's, you know, no need for people to be looking around now, that's a little bit,
But the redundancies of what you do when you're an election commission, if you're saying that there is a fake ballot out there.
well, there's nobody's accusing you guys of doing that.
I know,
But
that's,
it's
but
just,
that's, but that's my whole
just,
point.
but
If
my
there was
question
a-
was.
Well, I'm sorry, go
Excuse me,
ahead.
put the floor here. Like I said, you guys have been really accessible, and I appreciate it. And, all right, so I'm not pointing the fingers at you guys. You didn't invent this. Probably when we do some reform later, it'll be up to guys like me to do it. But I was kind of disappointed in a process that, again, I'm not blaming you guys, but, you know, early on when we were talking about the election process, you know, it's all about giving everybody the opportunity to vote. You know, why can we turn it on a napkin? Everybody gets an opportunity to vote. We want them to vote, want them to vote. We'll cater to them so they can vote.
We need to hurry up.
And then,
Go ahead.
but I, you know, I had a few, and I understand totally, because you guys are just doing your job, but I had a few that had some little minor mistakes on their registration, and they got mailed, and they corrected them not by the 19th. Just a little signature mistake or something. And, you know, we could blame them or blame somebody, but I hated the fact that I had to tell a few of them, you just cannot vote because you didn't sign the name that was on your blue card, you know, because, you know, in this part of the woods, there's some people who go by this and sign this and didn't look, but that's something I would look at for this body is, you know, I don't know how we could do it with the time frame, but boy, I hated telling those people, you didn't sign the right thing, so buddy, you can't vote. And then all we hear is, we're doing this so everyone can vote, but boy, I had to lay the hatchet on a few of them. But I'd like to look at that in the future, no fault of yours. One other thing,
Can I address that right quick?
yes,
And we understand that, and we hate also to have to reject anything. But
Right.
according to the law, there are certain
Right.
things that we have to look at.
Guys like me
And
have
if
to
it was,
change
you
that.
know, if it was not all on that form at the date that the law required, then, you know, that's the bottom line.
and I understand that.
Even
You
if
do-
it was a
you're doing your
signature,
job.
exactly.
I was talking future, like
So-
things to look at where by golly, these guys, but,
Right.
and just, are you at liberty to talk about anything that, like the investigation that's going on, that you're gonna meet about tomorrow at the special meeting?
Investigation on agenda, do we? I don't think we have anything on the agenda as far as investigation for tomorrow.
Special meeting sometime?
A special meeting tomorrow at 9, and that was to review the financials, to look at discussing how we are going to get the information out to the at-large voters regarding the candidate that is now ineligible. And one other thing? And one other thing, but there wasn't anything on there as far as investigations.
Okay.
I can recall.
The elections and absentee ballots.
Oh,
It's on there.
okay. Yes.
You need to vote
There,
any of that?
How was it worded on there? Absentee request?
No, it's just discussion, possible action regarding
Okay.
voter registrations and absentee ballots.
There are some things that we had come across that were referred to the Attorney General's office. And though there is an item on there to address those things regarding voter registrations and regarding absentee request. And we will not specifically be listing names, but the procedure of what we will do as a result of the investigation of the voter registrations and the absentee requests that were turned over. So that is on an agenda item tomorrow to address those things. And basically, it means whether we will accept or reject the request.
Okay. Let me ask you, just so I understand the process. So when there's findings, do they go over your head straight to the Attorney General's? Or are they supposed to go through you? I just don't know the process.
Generally, what
It's not a
happens
trick
is,
question.
it'll come to us, and then, Section 11C, 12F says that we send that on to the Attorney General
Okay.
office.
Before the special meeting.
But that's just the policy, yeah. So
Okay.
anything that we get, we send that on.
Oh, you just send, that's the process? Just
That's the
if-
process.
That is the
You don't have
process.
to wait on the election commission and the election commission's attorney to
No,
look
that
at it,
is-
see if it needs to be sent. You just,
That
hey,
is the process.
Send it
That's
Comes in, it was a complaint, we send it on.
well, thank you, guys. Thanks.
Councilor Watson.
If there's a absentee voter that submits their absentee and they voted, and, or actually, let's say they don't, just say it gets voted, but they show up to walk in to vote, and they're told, well, you've already voted, and they want to vote a challenge ballot, and they go ahead and vote, what sets precedence? The absentee or the challenge walk-in?
So,
They vote
There's-
absentee?
Let's say, I had a lady in Stillwell, she went to walk in, they said, you've already voted absentee. And she's like, I didn't vote absentee. And so she didn't vote. But if she would have voted and.
so what's
it
gonna
voted-
happen is by her name, it's gonna say absentee requested, they've requested an absentee. And they say, I didn't vote that, I wanna vote. They're gonna vote a challenged ballot.
Okay.
Yeah,
What-
so what's
what-
gonna happen is.
What sets
if-
precedence?
Well, if they voted the absentee ballot, it's gonna come in and it's gonna be processed and it's gonna be scanned in as a cast ballot, like that person has voted absentee. If that person did cast that ballot.
Mhm.
Then later on, if that person also cast a challenged ballot, we would know, because the challenged ballots are done last. They're done very last.
They're done last. Oh, I'm sorry.
So if it come to that time that we were processing that challenge ballot, we would see that a ballot had, or a vote had already been cast.
Right.
Am I mistaken?
But the ballot is going to be counted. Her right to vote, his right to vote is still going to take place, correct?
Yes, because we don't print those books.
Well, that's not the question I'm asking. The question I'm asking
That's what
is,
takes precedence.
yes,
I know that, but
what's the answer?
The absentee.
absentee's going, that's one.
But what if the absentee wasn't submitted by the person, but the person's in person to walk in and
The
vote?
absentee is going to have to be filled out in front of a notary. So the notary has the obligation to verify who the person is, and sign off that they are who they are.
Mhm.
And so by those standards, we have to accept that notary says that person is who that person is.
So you're taking the absentee ballot over the person being in existence and physical appearance right there at the election?
They've already submitted that, and like
They've
you said, the
submitted it.
notary notarized that they were the ones that were there doing that ballot, and that's the one that we will be accepting.
Thanks, Speaker.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? We'll let you guys get back and take care of business. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, old business, none pending. New business, none pending. Any announcements? Janice, that's how you're supposed to do it. You got 30 minutes to rest.
Hey, I appreciate that.
All in favor
30
to
minutes
adjourn?
to get my thoughts on it.
Second, Augie Olson.